I moved into this neighborhood thinking I'd found peace. It was a small, gated community. Quiet. Clean. The kind of place where everyone waves at each other, where you feel safe taking a walk at night, and where dogs bark just enough to remind you you're not alone. The gate at the front entrance gave me a sense of security I didn't realize I needed. It wasn't anything fancy, just a keypad where each homeowner had a private code. You'd punch it in, and the gate would open with a low hum. Simple, effective, private. At first, everything was perfect. My house sat in a cozy corner lot with a tall oak tree out front and a porch just wide enough for a chair and coffee cup. I didn't talk to many people, and they didn't seem to mind. There was an unspoken rule here: everyone kept to themselves, and everyone respected boundaries. It was just how I liked it. Then there was Karen. Karen wasn't her real name, but she was the kind of woman people think of when they hear Karen. Mid-50s, always wearing tennis skirts even though I never once saw her hold a racket. Blonde highlights, perfectly styled, even for trash day. She wasn't just a neighbor. She was on the HOA board, and she took that very seriously. Too seriously. The first time I met her, she wasn't rude. Not exactly. But she had that tone. That way of making you feel like she was doing you a favor just by talking to you. She introduced herself, told me she lived 2 houses down, and then jumped straight into neighborhood suggestions. Things like trimming my bushes a little shorter, keeping my trash bins out of sight, watering my lawn more often. I smiled, nodded, pretended to care. But deep down, I knew what this was. Karen was a control freak, and this neighborhood was her stage. Still, I didn't want drama. I ignored her, mostly. I did my thing, paid my dues, and stayed out of her way. Weeks passed, maybe even months, and I rarely saw her. Every once in a while, I'd get a letter from the HOA, little reminders about this or that. Your mailbox needs repainting. Holiday lights must come down by January 2nd. I didn't like it, but it wasn't enough to start a fight over. Then things started to feel off. It was subtle at first. One evening, I was reading on the couch when I saw headlights outside the window. Someone pulling into the driveway, then backing out. Just sitting there for a moment, like they were lost. I brushed it off. GPS glitch, maybe. But it happened again the next night. Then again 2 days later. Different cars. Different times. Same weird behavior. Drive up. Pause. Leave. I started noticing more and more strangers walking around the neighborhood. People I'd never seen before. A group of teens skateboarding by the fountain. A woman walking a dog that clearly didn't live here. A guy in a delivery van trying to open someone's mailbox. It felt wrong. The whole point of a gated community is to not deal with this. To know who belongs and who doesn't. At first, I thought maybe it was just a busy week. Maybe someone had guests over. Maybe a party. But the traffic didn't stop. It got worse. Some cars didn't even bother slowing down anymore. They drove straight in like they owned the place. That's when it hit me. Someone was giving out the gate code. I couldn't believe it. The only way to get in was to punch in a private number. Each homeowner was responsible for theirs. And as far as I knew, no one else had access to mine. I kept it private. I never gave it to friends. Not even family. If someone was visiting, I'd buzz them in myself. That's how it should be. So how were all these strangers getting through? The more I thought about it, the more paranoid I got. I started checking the security logs on the app that came with the gate system. It wasn't very detailed, but I could see timestamps and access patterns. And something didn't make sense. My gate code had been used over 30 times in the last 2 days. That was impossible. I hadn't even left the house. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about who would do something like this. Who would be careless enough, or bold enough, to give out someone else's gate code. I felt exposed. Violated. The safety I once felt behind that gate was gone. Replaced by frustration. By anger. Then I remembered Karen. It was a gut feeling, but it made too much sense. She was nosy. Controlling. Always talking about what's best for the neighborhood. She walked around like she ran the place. If anyone thought it was their job to share access to the community, it would be her. I needed proof. So the next morning, I went for a walk. Just casually, around the block. I passed by Karen's house, and sure enough, her car was parked out front. She was in the yard, trimming her rose bushes like she was filming a commercial. I gave her a smile, and she waved, overly cheerful. "Lovely morning, isn't it?" she said. "Sure is," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Say, have you noticed all the new faces around here lately? Lot of visitors lately, huh?" She didn't miss a beat. "Oh yes. I've had some friends over," she said. "And a few of the other neighbors have guests too. I mean, it's a community, right? We're supposed to be friendly." There it was. No shame. No hesitation. She didn't even ask if I was okay with it. She just assumed it was her right. I couldn't tell if she didn't realize what she'd done, or if she just didn't care. Later that day, I ran into one of the other residents, an older man who walked his dog every afternoon. We'd never spoken much before, but I decided to ask him directly. "Hey," I said, "just curious, did you get the gate code recently? Has anyone been giving it out?" He chuckled. "Oh yeah. Karen gave it to me. Said it was fine. I thought you were cool with it." I was stunned. "Karen gave you my gate code?" He nodded. "Said you wouldn't mind. Said you probably didn't even check who comes in." My blood boiled. That was it. No more guessing. No more giving her the benefit of the doubt. Karen had crossed the line. She didn't just hand out a random code. She handed out my code. The one tied to my name. The one that tracked my entry log. She had exposed my home to whoever she wanted, without asking, without warning, and without a single ounce of remorse. That evening, I sat in silence, staring out the window. Another strange car rolled by. My fists clenched. My heart was racing. I wanted to scream, to knock on her door and demand an explanation. But I knew Karen. She'd spin it. She'd say it was for the greater good. She'd act like I was the problem. That's how people like her work. So instead, I smiled to myself. Because I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was going to give her a taste of her own medicine. And I was going to enjoy every second of it. I didn't act right away. As much as I wanted to march over to Karen's house and throw every gate code log in her face, I knew it wouldn't do any good. People like her, they don't respond to logic. They don't admit they're wrong. They twist your anger against you and make you look like the villain. So I waited. I watched. I collected every small detail that proved she had crossed a line. The next few days were worse than ever. More strange cars rolled through the neighborhood. I saw two men unloading folding chairs from a trunk right across the street from my driveway. They didn't look like residents. They didn't even knock on anyone's door. They just stood there, looking around, then walked off like they were scoping the place. That night, I heard a knock at the door around 9 p.m. I didn't open it. I checked the camera feed instead. A woman in heels was standing there, holding a plastic container. She looked confused. After a minute, she pulled out her phone, made a call, and walked away. It was the final straw. I checked the gate app again. My code had been used another 12 times since morning. My hands shook as I scrolled through the timestamps. This wasn't just careless anymore, it was personal. Someone had handed out my gate code like it was free candy. And that someone was enjoying the power. I didn't need more proof. I already knew who it was. But for my own satisfaction, I needed to hear it directly from her. So I made a plan. The next morning, I waited by the mailbox. Karen always walked her dog around 7:30 a.m. right before her Pilates class. Like clockwork, she appeared, sunglasses on, leash in hand, her little white dog prancing beside her like it owned the pavement. I smiled as she approached. She smiled back. Fake, polite, just like always. "Morning, Karen," I said. "Good morning," she chirped. I kept my tone light. "Hey, quick question. Did you by any chance share my gate code with anyone? Just noticed a lot of people coming through lately." She paused. Just for a second. But it was long enough. "Oh," she said with a laugh. "Yes, I might have mentioned it to a couple of folks. Nothing serious. Just some friends and neighbors. Everyone's been asking for easier access. I figured you wouldn't mind." That sentence stuck in my chest like a needle. "I wouldn't mind," I repeated. She shrugged. "Well, I mean, it's not like it's a state secret. We live in a community. You know, open and welcoming, that's what we strive for here." I stared at her, speechless. She said it like she was doing me a favor. Like I should be grateful she chose my code to share. There was no apology. No hint of guilt. Just that same smug attitude she wore like perfume. Strong. Overpowering. Impossible to ignore. "But it's my personal code, Karen," I said quietly. "Tied to my house. I never gave anyone permission to use it." Her smile didn't even fade. "Well, now it's just easier for everyone. I mean, the gate is such a hassle when you have guests. No harm done. No harm done." I wanted to scream. But instead, I took a deep breath, nodded slowly, and said, "Thanks for letting me know." And I walked away. My heart was racing so fast, it felt like it would burst out of my chest. I clenched my jaw the entire walk home. My hands were shaking. I kept repeating her words in my head. No harm done. She had the nerve to break my privacy, to expose my home to complete strangers, and then brush it off like I was being dramatic. Like it didn't matter because she decided it was fine. That night, I stared at the ceiling for hours, unable to sleep. I kept thinking about how unsafe I felt. How this woman, who lived just down the street, had taken something private and tossed it into the wind like it didn't belong to me. She had stolen my control over my own space. My trust in this place had been shattered. But I wasn't going to sit and sulk anymore. I called the gate company the next morning. The rep on the phone was helpful. She walked me through how to reset my code and confirmed that only I had access to that number. In less than 15 minutes, I had a brand new code. One that no one else knew. And I had the perfect idea. When the rep asked me to enter the new code, I did it slowly, with a smile creeping across my face. Because I wasn't choosing a random number this time. I typed in Karen's phone number. Her real, personal cell number. Every time someone tried to visit with the old code, they'd be stopped. Confused. They'd call her. Text her. Ask what happened. Every time someone needed access, they'd have to reach her directly. She wanted to be in control? Fine. Let her take all of it. Let her deal with the mess she made. Within hours, the consequences started rolling in. That afternoon, I sat on my porch with a cold drink, watching the world unfold. I didn't have to wait long. Around 3 p.m., a car pulled up to the gate. The driver punched in a code. Nothing. He tried again. Still nothing. Then he pulled out his phone and started dialing. I watched him talk for a moment, then shake his head in confusion. He drove off. Then another one came. And another. I could imagine their conversations. "Hey Karen, the code's not working." "Karen, what's going on with the gate?" "Karen, why is your number the access code?" By evening, I was getting texts from numbers I didn't know. "Hey, is this the gate code line?" "Hi, Karen gave me your number for the gate, but now it's not working. Why does this number take me to voicemail?" I laughed out loud. I could only imagine what was happening on Karen's end. Dozens of calls. Random strangers trying to get into the neighborhood, all confused, all annoyed, and all blaming her. The woman who gave out someone else's code was now the gatekeeper whether she liked it or not. The next morning, she came knocking. I opened the door to find her fuming. Her sunglasses were off, her hair messy, and her usual fake smile replaced by a deep scowl. She didn't even say hello. "What did you do?" she snapped. "Excuse me," I said, feigning innocence. "You changed the gate code to my phone number." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, is that your number? Must be a coincidence." She crossed her arms. "This is not funny. I've been getting non-stop calls since yesterday. You need to fix it." I tilted my head slightly. "Fix what, Karen? You said it was no big deal." that the gate wasn't a state secret. I just figured if so many people already had the code, it might be easier if they called the person who gave it out. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I could see her searching for a response, some way to spin it. But there wasn't one. Not this time. I had every right to change my gate code, I added, still calm. What I didn't have was any warning when you shared it without asking me. She tried again. It's still inappropriate. You could have just told me. I looked her in the eye. And you could have asked before giving it out. But here we are. She stared at me for a moment longer, her lips pressed tight. Then, without another word, she turned and stormed off down the driveway, her little dog barking behind her like it was demanding justice. I watched her go, feeling the tightness in my chest slowly loosen. For the first time in weeks, I felt calm again, like I had taken something back. Not just control, but dignity. She wanted to be the queen of the neighborhood. Let her deal with the consequences of her own actions. It was only just beginning. The next few days were unusually quiet. I didn't see Karen around much. No neighborhood strolls. No smiling waves from her front yard. Not even the usual passive-aggressive HOA reminder in my mailbox. It was like she had vanished. But I knew better. She hadn't vanished. She was hiding. Probably dodging phone calls, texts, and awkward conversations with all the people she had confidently handed my code to, now redirected straight to her own number. I could almost hear the chaos echoing through her living room. Part of me expected her to retaliate somehow, maybe file a complaint with the HOA or try to twist the story in her favor. But instead, silence. And that silence felt louder than anything. It's funny how people who love control fall apart the moment they lose a little of it. Meanwhile, something surprising began to happen. Neighbors started talking to me. Real conversations. Not just nods or passing greetings. One guy from across the street, who I had only ever seen mowing his lawn with earbuds in, stopped by while I was out front. "Hey, just wanted to say, that was bold," he said with a laugh. Changing the code to her number? Genius. I smiled. "You heard about that?" "Oh yeah. Everyone's talking about it." Honestly, she kind of had it coming. She gave my cousin the code without asking me. I wasn't even home when he showed up. Then came a woman from 2 doors down. She introduced herself as Clara. We talked for nearly 30 minutes. She said Karen had also given out her code to some out-of-town friends who ended up staying way too long and left trash near the mailbox. Clara had complained, but Karen told her it was all part of being a welcoming community. A few days later, I even got a knock on the door from one of the newer residents. He just moved in a month ago and said he'd been given the code by Karen to make things easier. "She said it was yours," he admitted. "I didn't even realize it was a personal number tied to someone else. If I had known, I never would have used it." I appreciated his honesty. I told him the code was changed now and not to worry. We ended up chatting about the neighborhood, the good and the bad. It felt human, real. Like people were finally seeing what had been going on beneath the surface, behind the perfect lawns and polite smiles. And through it all, Karen stayed quiet. But it didn't last. About a week later, a letter appeared in my mailbox. Not an official HOA notice, just a plain envelope with my name written on it. Inside was a typed note, signed by Karen. No apology. No responsibility. Just a long-winded explanation about how the gate code situation had gotten blown out of proportion, how she had only acted in the interest of community convenience, and how she hoped I would be more thoughtful with neighborhood decisions in the future. More thoughtful. That was rich. Still, I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The message had already been sent, loud and clear. And the best part? I didn't even have to be loud to do it. The new code worked perfectly. No more random visitors. No unfamiliar cars rolling past my driveway at night. The gate felt secure again. The peace I'd once taken for granted was slowly returning. And for the first time since moving here, I didn't feel like a stranger in my own neighborhood. I felt seen, respected, even supported. But Karen, she wasn't used to that. About 2 weeks later, I saw her outside again. Not trimming bushes or walking her dog, but standing awkwardly near her car, fumbling with a bunch of flyers. She glanced over at me once, then looked away. It was clear something had shifted. The energy around her had changed. People weren't avoiding her exactly, but they weren't seeking her out either. Her kingdom was quieter now. I heard from another neighbor that she tried to call an emergency HOA meeting about gate code policies. Only 3 people showed up. 2 of them were new and didn't even know who she was. The third was just curious about the cookies someone said would be there. She had lost her grip. And not because I fought her directly, but because I simply exposed the truth. She had turned control into carelessness. Her actions weren't about safety or convenience. They were about power. And once that was gone, she didn't know how to act. And in some strange way, I felt relieved. Not victorious. Not smug. Just relieved. For so long, I had felt powerless. Watching strangers enter my space, wondering if someone would try the wrong door, worrying if I was overreacting. I second-guessed every decision. Every gut feeling. I told myself to stay quiet, to avoid conflict. But sometimes, standing your ground doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes, it just means holding people accountable in ways they don't expect. And as the days went on, the neighborhood continued to settle. There was laughter again. Kids playing by the fountain, dogs barking as they chased tennis balls, neighbors chatting on sidewalks without whispering. The strange tension that once floated in the air had lifted. Even the flowers outside Karen's house seemed to droop a little, as if even they were tired of her nonsense. I updated the gate code again a month later. This time, to something only I knew. Nothing clever, nothing symbolic. Just private. The way it should have always been. No one asked for it. No one needed it. Because people had started doing the right thing, buzzing in their guests, using visitor access, respecting each other's homes. And sometimes, when I passed Karen on the street, I'd give her a small, polite nod. Not because I had forgiven her, but because I had moved on. She never smiled back. But that was fine. Because I didn't need her approval. I never did. What I needed was peace. And after everything, after the frustration, the anger, the small act of digital rebellion, I finally had it. And I wasn't about to let it go again.